Miracle at the 2025 Shanghai Masters. This almost seems like somebody scripted a story for a movie or a TV show. Vacherot, ranked 204 in the world, doesn't even get into the qualies, but some players pull out. He gets in there and he ends up winning 9 matches and wins a Masters 1000 tournament, jumps to 40 in the world. But he also plays his cousin in the final, and it turns out that these guys not only warmed up against each other prior to the match, but also played college tennis together at Texas A&M. A beautiful story and great advertisement for the sport of tennis. This can also be very motivational and inspirational for other players because Vacherot winning this tournament is proof that a challenger level player can win a tournament like this. But the game of tennis is very complex and it's a lot more complicated than that. I do not believe that we're going to see a result like this in a very long time. And Vacherot, even though he primarily played on the Challenger Tour, is a special player. One thing is for certain, the level of play at the Challenger level is sky high. The skill set these players possess is very similar to the skill set that you see at the absolute elite level. However, it is not true that every challenger player has the potential to win a tournament like that. I think that's too much of a generalization. You do have to have a specific game style that can be dangerous to the elite level players. And certainly, a lot of players at the challenger level possess a very dangerous game style. But it goes even deeper than that. See, a lot of players that are of the same caliber as Vacherot could have faltered at many of the stages that Vacherot found himself in during this tournament because tennis is not all about serves, forehands, and backhands. Tennis is very much a mental nightmare that presents so many hurdles to a player, and a lot of players can't overcome these hurdles. And I want to focus in on a match that Vacherot played, which is not the final. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but I want to focus in on the second round of the qualies. And in the first round, Vacherot had beaten Vacherot, a great player who has a game style that's very similar to Djokovic. I talked about him in a previous video. And interestingly, in the first round match, Vacherot had lost the first set, but then won in 3. But against Liam Draxel, Vacherot lost the first set 6-4 and then won the second set in a tiebreak. So I didn't see this match. I very much wanted to watch it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. But just going by the scoreline, Vacherot could have easily lost this match. And I saw a very interesting comment on Twitter today. And somebody wrote that, how did Vacherot get so much better in the span of a week? And here's the thing. Vacherot did get better, but he is very much the same player that he was on September 15th, which was the last tournament that he played prior to Shanghai, where he lost in the first round of the Saint-Tropez Challenger to a player ranked in the 300s who received a wild card for the main draw. Vacherot at the Challenger in Saint-Tropez has the same skill set that he brought with him to Shanghai, where he won a ATP 1000. He's got the same forehand, he's got the same backhand, he's got the same serve, and he is just as fit in Shanghai as he was in Saint-Tropez, where he lost in the first round to a guy ranked in the 300s. And this is what makes tennis so mysterious. And it goes back to something that I talked about very frequently on the Intuitive Tennis YouTube channel, and that's confidence. But it's more than that. To play tennis at this level, you have to put in a lot of work and you have to be top fit. And you also want to go into tournaments with the belief that you can win. Somebody posted a message from Vacherot prior to the Shanghai tournament where he had a feeling that he was going to go on a run. So even though he hadn't even won a challenger all year, he went to Shanghai with belief. He didn't even know that he was going to be in the tournament. And then he got in, and that was the first stroke of luck, if you will. And then after beating Vacherot in the first round of qualies, he could have easily lost in the second round to Draxel. When you win the second set in a tiebreak and you lose the first set, that's a match that you can very easily lose. He came through that one and he qualified for the main draw. So that right there is an immediate boost of confidence. He plays Laszlo Djere in the first round and takes him out in straight sets. And now the confidence grows. So what I said earlier, that Vacherot is the same player that he was at Saint-Tropez where he lost in the first round. That's true. But when the confidence grows, all your strokes are going to work better. First of all, you're going to play more freely. You're going to trust your shots. You're going to play more aggressive. And you're going to miss less. And you're going to find your best tennis. And that certainly was the case in Vacherot's second round match, where he took out Bublik, who won 4 ATP tournaments this year, including a tournament in China a couple of weeks prior to Shanghai. And that was a huge upset. And after winning that match, his confidence was sky high. He went on to beat Mahach, another top player, up 6-0, 3-1. Mahach retired. And then in the fourth round, he plays Griekspoor, who just took out Jannik Sinner. Of course, Jannik retired, but Griekspoor played a phenomenal match. And after a very tough season where he lost 6 consecutive matches, I'm sure Griekspoor wanted to win this match very badly. But Vacherot, similar to the second round of the qualies, lost the first set, won the second set in a tiebreak. So again, he won the clutch points and he put Griekspoor away. Now, here's where it gets very complicated from a mental standpoint. And this is why I believe that Vacherot is a special player. Because while players at the challenger level possess a skill set that is very similar to the elite level, many players who play at those lower levels could have or possibly would have faltered in the following rounds, but Vacherot didn't. See, what happens to a lot of players is that when they achieve a result, let's say entering a big tournament, going through the qualies, reaching, let's say, the quarterfinals, and now they're facing a player who's at the very top of the game. Holger Rune, top 10 player. And there is a very nuanced thing that happens to some players, which is a satisfaction, let's call it a happiness to have achieved something very special. And see, it takes a lot of pain and suffering to go to the next step, which is to take out a Holger Rune. And again, I'm saying this is very subtle because, of course, players go into a match wanting to win. But are they really wanting to go the extra step and take out someone like Holger Rune in a quarterfinals of a Masters Series tournament? Or are they a little bit satisfied for having achieved a great result, reaching the quarterfinals of a Masters Series tournament? See, if a lot of players look deep inside, they will tell you, yes, there is such a thing as satisfaction in the game of tennis. And it's very subtle, and it has to be caught. Pete Sampras talked how he recognized that in his own game, where he lost the US Open final against Stefan Edberg after he had won the US Open as an 18-year-old, and he found himself happy with the result of reaching the finals of the US Open. Sampras said that that was a crucial moment in his career, a defining moment in his career, because he realized that he didn't like being satisfied with just making the final. He wanted to win the whole thing. And it is very natural to be satisfied. And it's for that reason that I say Vacherot is a special player, because he dug so deep against Rune, who was playing well in this match. Again, the conditions absolutely brutal in Shanghai. And he played 9 matches to win this tournament. This guy is unbelievably fit. But against Rune, he lost the first set 6-2. Rune was on absolute fire, and very similar to the second round of the qualies and the match against Griekspoor, he wins that second set 7-6, winning the clutch points, and comes through that one. And now comes an even bigger obstacle. And this is where most players would be satisfied. They'll be happy with losing to the GOAT, Novak Djokovic, in the semifinals of a Masters Series tournament. Now, of course, Novak Djokovic wasn't 100% fit in this match, as I talked about in yesterday's video, but still, the painkillers kicked in the second set, and you still have to play unbelievably well to take out an injured Djokovic, who was starting to move better in that second set. But Vacherot surprised me in this one because he was going for the win. He wanted to take out Djokovic, and he wanted that final really badly. Now, after beating Rune, he was guaranteed to go into the top 100 of the ATP rankings. So that right there was already a huge success. But he wasn't satisfied with that. He wanted to go one step further and make the finals, and that's why Vacherot is a special player. And now we get to the final, where he plays his cousin. And when family members play each other, there's always an interesting dynamic that doesn't always result in quality matches. Back in the day, when John McEnroe had to play against Patrick McEnroe, they both hated playing each other. Of course, Venus and Serena played each other many times, and currently on the WTA we have the Andreeva sisters who sometimes play against each other. And these are very interesting dynamics because obviously there's a deep history of practicing together from a young age and playing hundreds, if not thousands, of sets against each other. So Rinderknech and Vacherot only played one official match at the futures level that Rinderknech won. But in yesterday's video, I talked about how impressive Vacherot's fitness level is because he was physically beating a lot of these players, even though he had played more matches than the other players having come from the quali. So that to me was an advantage for Vacherot in the final. And very similarly to so many matches, overall it was 6 matches that Vacherot won from a set down. He loses the first set against Rinderknech. He gets broken at 1-all. Rinderknech serving extremely well, ends up winning that first set 6-4. And the second set is very tight. Both players are holding, and it's 3-all Vacherot's serve. And at 30-all, Rinderknech had a window to win this match and take this title. And he ended up missing a very makeable forehand volley at 30-all. And Vacherot ends up holding this game. And in the next game, Vacherot is returning more aggressive and he's really looking for that break. He was for sure starting to put more pressure on Rinderknech in this service game. And he gave himself a lot of break chances that he couldn't convert. Rinderknech, just like in the match against Medvedev, was serving really well when he was down break points. But eventually, Vacherot was able to get this break with a backhand down the line return winner. And then he very confidently served out the second set and won it 6-3. Now, in the third set, Vacherot was clearly the better player, the more aggressive player, and he was putting Rinderknech under a lot of pressure on his service game. So he got the break in the very first game, held very comfortably. And then he had a chance to go up a double break. He had low 40 on the Rinderknech serve, but he couldn't convert on any of those break points. And Rinderknech ends up holding. Vacherot holds, he's up 3-1, and he again has low 40 on the Rinderknech serve. He wanted that double break really badly. But again, Rinderknech very clutch. He got this game after saving a bunch of break points. And then interestingly, he took a medical timeout. So it's 3-2 Vacherot, and he's sitting on the bench with his eyes closed, and he's trying to keep himself calm. And again, a lot of players at this moment in time could have possibly faltered because there's an unbelievable amount of pressure serving out a Masters 1000 final when you haven't been there, and Rinderknech had a little bit of momentum on his side from having saved all those break points. But what impressed me so much about Vacherot was that he held to love in the next game and went up 4-2. Both players hold, and now it's 5-3. Vacherot, Rinderknech serving, and you could just tell that Vacherot wants the match right here. He's returning very aggressively, and he's rewarded for that. And on match point, he hits a beautiful forehand down the line winner and takes the Shanghai title. So when you take a look at these results, winning 9 matches in Shanghai, there's several things that we can take from this. First of all, this guy is in unbelievable shape. He lasted through this whole tournament, and I didn't see him cramp one single time while so many other players were struggling physically. So he for sure was working very hard and put himself in a top physical condition. Also, he went into this tournament with belief that he can do well based on that text message. And that's something that's very important for players. If you go into a tournament or go into a match without the belief that you can win, you are not going to win. It's very important to go into every match with the belief that you can win, even if this belief is delusional. So this is something that players have to realize independent of what level they're competing at. You have to play to win. And I know this might sound crazy to some of you guys, but it's not always the case that players play to win. They sometimes lose the match prior to stepping on the court. So Vacherot for sure had the belief that he can go on a run in this tournament, and it paid off. And most importantly, when you put in all the hard work, when you prepare yourself optimally, when you try your hardest in every match, when you fight, good things can happen. And when good things happen, you build the so important confidence in the game of tennis. And if you look at these results right here, you can see that the confidence in Vacherot's game grew from match to match, and he ended up winning this title in a spectacular fashion. But one thing that I talked about yesterday is the fact that Vacherot is a player that has a skill set that can be dangerous against the elite level, and he's a very complete player. It's not only the physical performance that was so impressive, but he also has a phenomenal serve. He returns very aggressively, plays good defense, and is so rock solid from the baseline. The forehand is very good. The backhand is spectacular, and he just doesn't miss that much. He plays aggressive tennis without committing that many mistakes, and that type of game style, especially in tough conditions, is very difficult to play against. So he for sure has the potential to be a threat on the ATP Tour. But is he guaranteed to continue playing at this level and start taking Masters 1000 titles? We don't know. We have to watch Vacherot and see what happens. There was a player back in 1996, and I lived in Germany at the time, and I remember this vividly. His name was Roberto Carretero, and he won the Masters 1000 tournament in Hamburg, ranked 143 in the world. He beat Kafelnikov in the semifinals and beat Alex Corretja in the final. And I never forgot what happened to Carretero after this tournament. He did go up to 55 in the world, but the biggest result he had after winning the Hamburg Masters was reaching the quarterfinals in Umag on clay. And most of the other tournaments that he played while he was ranked in the top 100, he lost in the first round. And then once he lost those points that he got in Hamburg, now he started playing challengers again, and he did quite well in challengers, but he would play ATP tournaments here and there and would usually lose in the first round. Now, another result that's very comparable to Vacherot's Shanghai title is Emma Raducanu's run at the US Open, where she also won the entire tournament from the qualies, destroying everyone. And it took Emma a few years to start playing well again. Now, I'm not saying that what happened to Raducanu and Carretero will happen to Vacherot, but I am saying that once somebody becomes famous and is not an unknown, now there are expectations and there's additional pressure, and that certainly can be tough to handle. So it's quite possible that the results could be quite poor for a while until that pressure starts to fall off. But again, Vacherot is a player that can be very dangerous to a lot of players at the top of the game. He certainly has the skill set, he has the fitness, and he has the mindset to be one of the best players in the world. It's going to be very interesting to see how he will play at the Paris Masters, where there certainly is going to be a lot of pressure, not only on Vacherot, but also on Rinderknech. Like I told you guys in the beginning of this tournament, the fall season is fun. A lot of great things happening. And this Shanghai tournament certainly was one of the most motivational and inspirational tournaments that I've ever watched.